So the Xbox Series S and the Xbox One X are almost tied together in a way. These two consoles were probably the closest in terms of one generation to the other that we've seen in a very long time. If you think about it, the Xbox One X in some ways is a more powerful Xbox, but the Xbox Series S is the newer Xbox with a little bit more of a future ahead of it. So should you go and buy like the past generation Xbox, or should you go and buy the current generation, even though it's a little bit maybe less as powerful? Now, in 2020, when the Xbox Series S came out, I talked so much, and so many other people did too. I'm like a nobody compared to some other people. A lot of people talked about how the Xbox Series S and the overlap between the Xbox One X could cause a huge delay on when the Series S is going to, or even the Series X, is going to start looking like a better deal. Now, for a long time, it was really hard to get Series S's or X's, but now it's become a little bit easier. And the question now is, because there's been almost 3 years of development for the Series S, is that much better of an experience? Is it a better deal, or is it a better Xbox than the Xbox One X is as of right now? And I'm going to try answering that question. I think the answer is probably yeah. I think now probably would be a decent time to look at the Series S more than the Xbox One X, but it's still insane, the power behind the Xbox One X and the amount of just capability behind that console as well. It kind of just makes sense to go and buy something like that, the Xbox Series S over the X, even though the X is more powerful. Like, it's insane. Now, to give you just some of the numbers real quick, the Xbox One X compared to the Xbox Series S isn't clocked as high in terms of the processor. So you are getting 8 cores at 3.6 GHz on the Series S, whereas on the Xbox One X, you're getting 8 cores at 2.3 GHz. So not as powerful of a chipset or a processor. With the graphics though, you are getting 4 teraflops on the Xbox Series S. With the Xbox One X, you're getting 6 teraflops. You're also getting an additional 2 gigabytes of RAM on the Xbox One X, so 10 gigs of RAM versus 12 on the Xbox One X and Series S. But also, in terms of the internals, you're getting, a disc tray on the Xbox One X, which is huge. You're still getting 4K output and 4K Blu-ray on the Xbox One X as well. Whereas on the Series S, I think some games can upscale to like 1440p or something like that. But the Xbox One X is just such a powerful console in so many ways. And considering it came out in 2017, like 6 years ago, it's still insane that this thing is as powerful and as capable and as relevant as it is in this day and age. Now, I would say some key things going for the Xbox Series S over the X. For one, although you're not getting as much RAM, you are getting an SSD built inside of the Series S versus the hard drive on the Xbox One X. So that right there could be a pretty big deterrent for a lot of people of picking up an Xbox One X anymore, considering the fact that the Xbox One X, does have that hard drive, which could throw some people off. Now, I will say on top of that, the biggest thing, I would say probably the biggest thing between these two, even beyond just the games itself, pretty much is going to be that disc tray. With the Xbox Series S, you are not getting a disc tray built in, and that can be a humongous problem for some people. Personally, for me, I love having disc tray, and I can spend 30 minutes talking about that in and of itself. But when you're getting a console like an Xbox One X, for example, you are getting a console that still has that disc tray. But why is that important? Well, for one, you are going to be getting a console on the Xbox, One X, where you can go ahead and not only play the current generation games that are all digital and on the, Xbox store, but what you can also do is that you can go ahead and buy, you can go into Best Buy or Walmart and you can purchase the game there if you want to. But even bigger than that, and probably the most important thing, you can actually go ahead and pretty much purchase used games in the used market, and you can go ahead and buy those games and basically plug them inside of your Xbox Series S. And you'll basically have a humongous leap over any other console that does not have a disc tray inside of it. That right there is crazy important. And genuinely for me, that would be a huge reason why I would look at something like an Xbox One X over an Xbox Series S, because you have that type of capability. You have the ability of essentially going through and buying and purchasing those used games. And that's something, when I look at something like the Xbox One X, that's a humongous capability. And honestly, even for the Xbox Series X, that's also another really big thing right there too. So it's not the end of the world if you do get something like an Xbox Series S, but that is something that I really do like. And like I said, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about it because it really is that important. But not all is bad. You are still getting lots of ports. Basically, it's kind of similar ports a little bit on both of these consoles. Now, on the Xbox One X, you were getting a USB port on the front, which is awesome. But on the back, you were getting also a few more ports. You were getting that AC adapter. You were getting 2 HDMI ports, which is crazy. Now, some of you may look at those HDMI ports and be like, why do I want them? Well, one, those are two HDMI ports, so you have an input and an output. So if you wanted to, you could go ahead and plug in a different device like a Nintendo Switch pass-through or like a PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4, whatever you have. And you can output your, if your HDMI monitor only has one HDMI port, well, you can plug in the other HDMI here and you'll still be able to see it. So it's almost like an HDMI splitter built in, which is honestly very cool. You have two USB ports as well. So you have that other type of capability right there. So you can just plug in more stuff if you want to. And you also have an Ethernet port in the back. That is pretty good. That's a decent amount of ports to have on this type of device, like I mentioned. Definitely not like the craziest amount of ports ever, but it is weird because on the Xbox Series S, they did actually end up removing an HDMI port, which is insane. So on the front of the Xbox Series S, you do have that standard USB-A port. No USB-C ports on this console, which I always found weird. I feel like Microsoft should have been one of the first people to put a microSD or USB port on the USB-C on the front of this thing. They did not end up doing that, which was very weird. Now, on the back of this console, you are getting that Ethernet port. Same old, still works. It's beautiful. You're getting two other USB ports, which is awesome. So again, you have that type of capability of basically expanding this to whatever you want to do with it. You have the HDMI port, and then you also have a storage expansion pack and the AC adapter as well. So the big takeaway is, for one, you're removing an HDMI port, which isn't the biggest deal in the world, but it would have been kind of nice to still have that HDMI splitter between them, kind of that's built in. But I would say very similar ports for the most part, so not like a big massive change. Now, software-wise, again, the Xbox Series S is going to be the one that's going to be lasting longer. And this, again, is the console where I look at and it just makes sense to buy. And that might seem kind of insane because this whole entire video, I've been hyping up the Xbox One X. But as I mentioned, with the Xbox One X, it was on its last leg. It was on its last leg by the time the Series S came out. But we were lucky enough, to people who own the Xbox One X, that there were supply chain issues and a lot of the game developers were still developing almost all the games for the Xbox, Ones as well. So because of that, you are still in a good spot if you own the Xbox One X. I think that's still a very capable machine. I think it's still a very capable console, and that console's not really going anywhere anytime soon. But I look at the Xbox Series S, and this one has more of a future ahead of it. I think we're going to start seeing a time where there's more exclusive games coming out for the Series S. There probably already are, and I'm probably overlooking some. But there's a lot of games that are going to be coming out for the Series S, and there's going to be lots of new development on that type of console, which I think is very cool. With the Xbox One X, like I've said, I've always felt like that was a very good console, and I feel like Microsoft has done a very, very good job with it. But I don't think that it's the one you have to go ahead and pick up right now out of necessity. I also don't think the Series S is the one you have to pick up today out of necessity either. I feel like the better deal overall is probably a used Xbox Series S if you're able to pick one up. But if you can only buy an Xbox One X, or if you currently own an Xbox One X, I think still you can probably keep it for another couple months, a year or two. You can keep it forever. But if you want to, not have any fear of missing out, well, maybe you might want to buy a Series S maybe this year or next year. By the time the new games will start coming out by then. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.